Your high schooler is a slim and trim ice skater, like we saw Ruben out there with all those kiddos, or maybe a couch surfing gamer. There is a climbing concern about cholesterol in teenagers. The Centers for Disease Control tell us more than 20% of teens in the U.S. have elevated cholesterol levels. And here to share the signs that your teen may be at risk for heart disease, Dr. Mama Rachel Zahn. And I'm so glad you're here, because I think we have a lot of misconceptions about cholesterol and teens and weight, and just set the record straight for us.
Thank you, Renee. Thanks for having me back. We know that heart disease is the #1 killer in the U.S., and we know that elevated cholesterol is the major risk factor for heart disease. And now, as a result of this study, we also know that at least 20% of our teens suffer from this. And what that means is your average high school class, there are at least 7 kids in that class who are at risk of premature heart disease. And that's pretty big. That's huge.
That's huge. And from the study that I was looking at, it's not necessarily even overweight teenagers. Their height and the weight are very proportional. It has to do, you're saying, more with their activity level.
That's right. A third of the kids in this study were overweight, and they were at higher risk. About half of them had elevated cholesterol, but the rest were normal weight, and we don't have a really good explanation for that. First, a little bit about cholesterol testing. There are 3 things that go into high cholesterol. One is called the HDL, and that's actually the good cholesterol. You want that number to be high, and that number goes up when you exercise more. Second is LDL, or low density lipoprotein, and that number you want to keep low. Then there's triglycerides. You want that number to be low too. The 2 factors that contribute to your cholesterol level are heredity and habits. Heredity we can't control.
No,
who our relatives are, right? As much as we'd like to.
But habits we can.
Absolutely.
So talk to me about some of the habits that we have gotten as a culture into, passed on to our kids, and now our teens really need to modify what their habits are.
Well, one obviously is what we eat, and that we can control. A high-fat, high-sugar diet sends that cholesterol soaring, no matter what your heredity is. So there are some simple ways to really control that. Make small changes in your family. Don't try to put your family on a very low-fat diet tomorrow.
Right, from hamburgers to wheat germ. Maybe take it more slowly than that.
Absolutely. Make small changes like low-fat milk instead of full-fat milk. Add 1 serving of vegetables a day. Take 1 high-fat, high-sugar item off that grocery list. Things like that. Small incremental changes.
Maybe limiting the amount of TV or computer use and just saying, hey, as a family, we're going to go out in the backyard and, play kickball today.
Absolutely. Unplug your kids. Find out if your kid's school has a no cell phone, no iPod policy. Really important. You don't want that recess time spent with the iPod. You want your kid running around.
It's so interesting, Dr. Zahn, because as we get more technologically advanced and improved, it also seems like as a society we tend to become more sedentary, and that can be something that really leads to heart disease, high cholesterol, and things that are not good for us.
That's right, and it really comes down to changing habits. Not easy to do, but really doable. And if, as you said, you take your family out on a walk after dinner every night, make it competitive with your kids. Kids love to compete with each other. See how many times they can run around the block. They love that kind of thing. You just need to change the habits.
Okay, so that was great. Changing your diet, more exercise and more activity. And what about more frequent testing? I mean, normally you don't think of teenagers as having to get a cholesterol test, but maybe now with these studies, it's a good idea.
Absolutely. Make sure your family doctor is on top of checking your child's cholesterol. In fact, the American Academy of Pediatrics recommended last year that children as young as 8 start testing. And if there's a family history, even younger, as young as 2.
Wow.
So it's important, and if your doctor doesn't suggest it, you bring it up.
All right, information is power, and thank you for giving us such good information today. Hey, as always, the doctor is in. Dr. Mama can get her information on our website if you didn't get to write all that down. But knock on wood, you said so far none of your kids have high cholesterol.
Not yet, but I make them go outside.
Good. Go outside. Send them out of the house. Stop bugging Mama.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Good to have you here today.
Thank you, Renee.